It's a bone-chilling evening, just a few degrees over freezing here in Innsmouth Hive, and it seems through our pursuits of the truth, we may have kicked over one too many cans of Promethium in the last few hours here on 665.66 UHM Chemrat Radio. We find ourselves surrounded by the chittering and chanting of the glass-eater cultists, but fear not, nothing can stop the signal. Coming to you tonight from an old abandoned Dunwich power station of sublevel 199, at least as long as these barricades hold. I am your thrill-seeking, adrenaline fiend Goblin King, joined this evening by my unhinged, wisecracking, gadget and tech nerd, Marky.
I was like, I don't know if this is Tom or me. And what do you mean glass eating?
The glass eating cultists.
Are we going to get to, do they actually eat glass?
I don't know. They call themselves the glass eaters.
It's just sugar cane.
Oh, okay. I was going to say.
Yeah, it's probably
like, dude, that's so metal. They eat glass and shit blood.
Yeah, actually metal if they ate metal. Not glass.
Our cool under pressure, tough as nails bruiser with a secret past beast.
I wouldn't say I'm cool under pressure. very,
like shit,
very not cool under pressure.
Shit dies when I'm under pressure.
Very upset.
Oddly enough, even though he was our final girl, it looks like Kevin already bit it. We thought he was going to die in the sequel, but
we have a special guest here tonight with us.
We do,
Mr. Goblin King. We have your partner in crime.
We have my child.
Yes, your child, your partner in crime, your sunlight beam in this.
The only warmth in the.
Yeah, the only warmth in the hive.
Your loaf of bread.
Senor Emmett.
Yes. Emmett the pug is here with us.
Snoring away.
Yep. Yes. He's good to go.
He's loafing it up.
He's having a good old night.
He literally looks like a loaf of bread right now.
Our mascot. Emmett.
We are back for Lorus Obscurus episode 3, Change in the Hive.
I should have wore my brown pants.
So we want to take a few seconds for you guys to prepare before we share any further. Make sure all the lights are off. Make sure that you're a little scared already.
Dial it down.
The way I imagine these like Lorus Obscurus episodes going is like when you were a kid and tuning into Tales from the Crypt.
Right. You're like, oh, let me go turn off the lights.
Yeah, like you turn off the lights, you light a candle or something, or you put the night light on.
Break out the Ouija board.
Right? Break out I was going to say break out the weed. I was like, yeah, that too.
Now that we're a little older, break out the weed.
I don't know. When I was a kid, man, like that was just I loved that show, Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah, same here. Tales from the Crypt, and Goosebumps, Are You Afraid of the Dark?
But man. Tales from the Crypt had a whole new, like their intro was scary. Yeah. You know, like
just the idea of it. Like you have a host that's like a corpse that has this high pitched screechy voice. Like it set the tone. You know, it was like,
I literally was at that age. I don't know how old I was, but it like borderline scared me.
Yeah.
Like Crypt Keeper, like
it was creepy.
Well, so like what I would do is when Crypt Keeper would show up, I'd be like, "Hey, it's my homie Crypt Keeper." Like I changed.
You'd pretend.
Yeah. Like I was like, "Nah, he's cool. We're cool." So I'm not afraid of him.
It's the homie Crypt.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like the Tales from the Hood. Like
we tight. When I turn off the lights in this room later, I'm not gonna run upstairs because we're tight.
Yeah, exactly. Like I literally would do that when I was a kid because I was like, this is the only way I can watch this and not be already scared.
Yeah.
Because like some of those were terrifying.
Oh, dude.
Do you guys remember the one where maybe it was another horror movie? There's a horror movie where Snoop is like a Crypt Keeper.
Yeah, that's literally called Tales from the Hood.
Yeah. Wait, is that with Snoop?
That was like
that sounded really familiar. It's honestly I haven't seen it since like it was out, so I can't remember shit.
Well, Crypt Keeper like teamed up like he would team up with that. Like Crypt Keeper I think was in Tales from the Hood.
Okay.
Like
yeah.
And it was
I'm pretty
sure. Like he came up, he's like, "What's up, homies?" You know, like, and Snoop Dogg's like, "Sup?" You know, like, like that was like the beginning. You know, like it was Crypt Keeper like talking to a bunch of rappers,
like, "Sup?
Like,
hit this blunt. You ain't cool, man."
Yeah. Inhales, comes out of his rib cage. You know, like,
oh yeah,
yeah, it was good. I used to love that show. There was always one that always got me. and it was this dude who like fell in love with like a phone sex worker, but she ended up like
A man.
no, like she was like a little lizard thing
Oh.
and like came out of the phone. Like, yeah, it was like nuts. Like she like spewed out of the phone, but like it wasn't until like way later did I realize like how fucked up it was.
Like
Like
crawled
it's this
into his
weird
ear.
lizard thing. Like you ever seen a fish called a snakehead?
No.
Yes.
Yes. So it looked like that with legs, right? Which basically it looks like an eel.
So
You know?
like a glass snake.
Yeah.
How big was it?
Like like probably the size of Emmett. Like
Oh,
right,
that
but
shit
the
came out of
whole
phone?
came out like the phone cracked in half and it like crawled out of it, and it was just like this red, like it had a mouth, but it was like these red lips,
Ooh.
and it was like hey, and like came out because she was like
Oh.
talking to him on the phone, and like the scariest part is he's like sitting on the couch like with his shirt open,
Yeah.
and this happens and she like crawls up like this thing,
Oh.
and then he goes, oh. Like he's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know, just like
she's put your dick in it.
she's got a mouth.
Sen-
You know,
sentient.
like it was just like,
He's like,
"Ooh."
Sentient fleshlight.
Yeah, that's like what it was, dude.
That's a horrifying. Like I was like, I got a joke, and then I said it, and I'm like, oh.
That's what I'm saying. Like it was
Ugh.
creepy, and then it was like it made you laugh, but like still afterwards you're like, ooh.
You're like, I don't feel clean right now.
So
It's like a sock, but it's a newt.
So I heard something earlier today about how especially younger kids are you know, we have an attraction to certain types of monsters like Godzilla and werewolf and all that, and I guess part of the psychology there is these are things that are going through like periods of their life. You know, you turn into a werewolf or you're Godzilla or whatever, where you're essentially like, you don't understand how to use your body really. And like, you're angry and you don't really understand the world around you.
Metaphor for a werewolf is puberty.
Yeah. And
You're
appeal,
growing hair in weird places.
yeah, they appeal to kids. And that's why like a lot of kids identify with monsters, because like that's where you're, when you're like between, you know, 8 and 12, you're like, I'm a monster. I'm gonna go knock over a bunch of buildings. I don't know enough of it deep enough.
I think
but-
in like, I was like 10. We used to have a guy that used to, I mean, it's a 10-year-old kid. There's a kid that used to pretend to be like Godzilla.
just stomp on shit all the time.
We used to play a game where we
you would like
were-
run around like, rawr.
Well, we used to play a game that was Jurassic Park where you were like the Velociraptor and you like
Yeah.
chase each other. It was like tag basically.
Yeah, but this guy was playing by himself.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, you're like, oh, you're like, oh, that's different.
He probably plays Warhammer now.
I think I might have met him. No, I think, oh God, what was it? It was like, I only ever knew the vampire kids.
I don't think
Yeah.
I ever had those.
Yeah, see, I had a lot of those. They used to go out and play,
Suck on each other.
well, no,
they
it was
would LARP, Vampire
It was
the Masquerade,
LARP. Yeah, Masquerade. That's what it was. Yeah, my buddy was like,
What is it?
hardcore.
I used to. I
Masquerade, what'd you say?
ran Vampire the Masquerade in Escondido for like 5 years.
Oh, people like actually do this?
Oh, so you probably know a lot of the people that I used to know.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's really funny too, because I run into him sometimes, like still around town or whatever. Like I'll run into him and they'll be like, "Hey, what's up? Do you remember blah blah blah?" I'm like, "No." It's like we don't talk about it.
Yeah, we don't talk about that.
Like I ran the game because I have that thing in my head for like organizing groups of people for like events, and like that's a really weird but really easy entry into it, is running a fucking live action role playing game. But when it came down to like playing the game, I'm like, nah.
Did you go to SDSU? Yep. Probably know the same. I went to one and I was like, this is too weird for me.
Yeah, really weird.
It was funny though.
You,
'cause,
you guys are weirding me out.
no, so like
honestly.
it's like it's a live action role play, but like you it's like D&D almost, but you're actually standing there talking to people.
Yeah.
And like they
really-
dress up like
what
people
is
wear
what is the
suits.
LARPing aspect of it?
So you're in person, you're dressed up in like nice clothes or whatever
Yeah.
you'd wear.
Do you throw like a red beanbag at someone's
Nope.
face?
No,
No,
It was all
everything's
done by
rock, paper, scissors.
Rock, paper, scissors. Yeah.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
What's the rock paper scissors part of it?
So
We get-
let me explain.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I went to one where our job, basically I made my character so I didn't talk, so I didn't have to act like an idiot. I was
You're
like,
I
I was like, I
basically cheated the
I
system.
could not do this. I cannot be like, I'm a vampire. Like I couldn't do it. So I was like, look, I'm just
You're
gonna
like, I'm a mute.
no, yeah, that's what it was. Like, so like apparently my story was that I had
You're
died.
traumatized.
Well, a dude had slit my throat,
Oh, okay.
right? But I was bitten, but my throat was still slit when I was human.
What'd
So
you
when I
slit your throat with?
transformed, a knife. and threw me into a barrel of whiskey is like, I guess what it was. So, cause that's how they
with his dick. Jesus, Mark.
So that's how,
Sorry,
that's how I would get introduced. Was the guy who I was with was like, oh, this is and I was literally called Bane. That was like my name. He's like, this is Bane. He's my muscle.
Yeah.
You smell whiskey, like whenever you see him. And they're like, oh, okay. Like, so that was like my character.
Oh, so they introduce you in that way. Like,
yeah.
Your backstory. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So then people knew that I didn't talk.
Gotcha.
So that we ended up going to this house, right? Which we literally we were like, all right, we're going to get into a car.
We're going to go stand in this chunk of the parking lot.
And then they move us over to this other area and they're like, okay, there's a hedgerow. You have to make it through a door. And we're like, okay, cool. And the guy's like, we're going to, pick the lock.
Right.
And we get into this big room.
Now, all this is figurative, right?
All this is just being explained.
You're all theater of the mind. Yeah.
Gotcha.
You're all around one person who's talking.
But you're all just in a big gymnasium or something?
We were at SDSU. I don't remember exactly.
It was played on campus near the art area.
But it's just in a big room kind of thing?
No, you're outside.
Oh,
you're
okay.
outside. And it's 2 a.m.
Yeah, the one in Escondido is held at City Hall. I think it's whoever the person who took it over from me still runs it at City Hall.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would definitely say if you ever have the opportunity to try it. Yeah, because it's really interesting and this game is fun. It's interesting. Well, so
it's LARPing, dude.
Yeah. So it's funny because we ended up in this room, right? And there was apparently a giant bat creature flying above us and had a duffel bag full of self-impaling stakes.
Oh.
Right? So I couldn't, I was laughing because I was imagining the broomsticks from Fantasia. They were just walking around. And they were
this gonna stake me.
Yeah, they were humping you, how that's how you stake you.
That's a picture. That is a picture from the Carlsbad Vampire the Masquerade game that I played in when I was 17, 18.
Are you in that picture?
I am in that picture.
Wait, Ryan, show me.
You find me.
So the funniest thing is my buddy had a fire axe.
Okay.
And I had a 45.
Full shirt, right? Full shirt?
I'm in the tool shirt. Yeah.
Okay.
So I had a 45. And I think I know 2 of those guys.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I think I know that guy.
I know you know one of those guys because you're sitting in the room with him.
Yeah, I know. You look yeah. High school.
Yep.
Was that high school?
Yeah. I was
15, 17.
I'm wearing the thing hanging out of my pocket is legitimately like a secure your towed car chain. That this was in my
It wasn't a wallet chain?
It was a real chain that hung to my wallet. It was that
a wallet
that
chain.
era.
It was that
okay.
time.
Yeah, I remember that era.
Yeah, but instead
nothing
of
to be ashamed of, dude.
Instead of a wallet chain, it was a
chain.
Yeah.
I always carried a bolt in my pocket for a fist loader.
Interesting. Okay, that makes sense.
But anyway, we're in this room and we're trying to get out. And so my buddy runs over and he's like, okay, I'm going to take my fire axe. I'm going to hit the door. And they're like, okay, cool. And they're like, rock, paper, scissors. He does it. He fails. He's like, cool. Your fire axe breaks. It flies off. And I was like, cool. I'm going to shoot the fucking lock. And so they're like, okay. And I see every rock, paper, scissors. I won. And he's like, okay, you shoot the lock. It opens. You walk through. It immediately, it stays open and you found the exit. I just fucking saved everybody, right? And the funniest thing was afterwards, I was like, man, you really would have thought a fire axe, you could at least in my mind, I was thinking an axe that's on fire.
Wow.
Okay. Not a fireman's axe.
Not a fireman's axe.
Legitimately
no, it was just a fireman's axe.
Fire axe.
Yeah, and I was like, oh. And he's like, what? Come on, man. You can't be that crazy. I'm like, we are pretending to be vampires. And there were stakes with arms and legs that are trying to fuck you in the middle of a fucking room.
We are LARPing.
Yeah, and I was like, don't tell me that I'm being outlandish.
Are you kidding me right now?
But it was one of those, I remember coming back and there was a woman who.
So what is the vampire aspect of
So
this?
you're vampires. You're in a coven.
That's it?
And it's all about being underworld.
Right.
It's basically you're one of your death dealers.
Right. But I'm failing to see okay, does somebody get bit? I'm
usually
thinking, hands come up your shoulders.
Usually that doesn't happen in the game. So you can play mortals if you want. or
It's a
you
weird
can
sex thing.
play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it a weird sex
Yeah,
thing?
it
Okay.
is.
Okay.
Everybody was sleeping with each other.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's where. Okay.
There was a lot of. It's one of those like if you're there after 2, like the game.
Yeah.
Usually the game wraps up at 2.
Okay. So
if you hang around after 2 and you go to Denny's with it, there's usually like a weird, you know when to dip. If
Yeah.
you don't want to be involved in the sex thing, you know when to dip because it's very obvious.
Okay.
It's
but
like how people used to talk about like Renaissance fairs.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, if you stay at the Renaissance fair. And it's like, yeah, it's really not like that. Like
Yeah.
it is, but it's not.
I'm
I was
assuming-
gonna say, dude, it totally is. I
Yeah,
just
it
know
is,
when
but
to
it's
dip.
not. Like, yeah.
Is it kind of like how like I mean I've never been to one, but like furry convention, like if you go to a
I
furry
have
convention,
no idea.
All of those types of things, right? It's people who are into this hobby and it attracts men and women.
Gotcha.
And I am going to sound like such a pig, but it involves a lot of not normally attractive people. And what society would deem normally attractive.
Yeah,
right?
if you're gothy,
Yeah, it's like a lot of alternative people.
right.
So it's a lot of people that are not
They're
getting
not-
laid every day.
they're
like,
not
you know what
they're
I mean?
not
Like,
blonde. They're not blonde chicks from the valley who
Yeah.
attract Hollywood.
Right.
attention.
You're not your normal sociable. Like,
Yes.
Like
like jocks and
You're looking for
cheerleaders,
people like-minded. Like it's like. So like it's 40K and after 2:00 we do pillow talk.
Yeah. It's like if 40K.
I'm sure.
had-
I'm sure in certain circles of people who play like 40K all night or all weekends that
Eventually they bone?
are in mixed like co-ed situations. I'm sure it's probably not as prevalent because Vampire the Masquerade is very specific. It's a social game and
Right.
it's very specifically sexually charged.
I was gonna say vampires are usually in that.
This is
Thing.
Anne Rice era vampires.
Anne Rice.
The person that made the vampire sexy and took the vampire from being like Dracula. So you have the Dracula era vampire.
Right.
That's like, I can raise the dead at the snap of a finger. I can
Right.
enchant you with a look, but I'm killing you. It has nothing
Right.
to do with sex.
Right.
Usually
And then
pointy
there was a
ears,
shift.
bald heads.
Yeah.
Like,
And then there was a shift to like Euro trash sexy men, specifically Brad Pitt and not Kevin Costner.
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise.
Okay, yeah, I remember that.
That vampire era.
Yeah.
And then there was an even further shift into Robert Pattinson and fucking sparkling in the sun, where
Twilight
vampires
shit.
became even more sexy.
Gotcha.
So the demarcation between horror monster and sexy man
Right.
was Anne Rice wrote a series of books called Interview with the Vampire. The first one's called Interview with the Vampire.
Oh, is that the Suki Stackhouse thing?
No, that's
No.
True Blood.
That also came out of the Anne Rice movement, though.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So that's when you take monsters and things like that and you make them
You sexualize them.
you sexualize them. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
like where werewolves. It's like they could turn. They're like a norm. They're like this big buff
They're like,
dude.
yeah, I
and then
could-
it's like, I'm a dog now. You know, and it's like,
He's like, but I can just change just my cock.
exactly. You know, like it's like it's like I
what
remember
is my
werewolves.
foot?
Werewolves were like the unibrow looking dudes,
Right,
and now
yeah.
it's like this big ripped, like clean shaven
Shredded
dude.
dude.
Yeah,
I'm
And
just
then he's
gonna
like, I'm a wolf now.
Not a
Like,
fucking hair on him.
I'm just gonna flat out say if I'm aware pug.
We're pug.
Yeah. I get real tired around midnight of the full moon and I turn into a pug and I just don't move for 24 hours.
So I did one of those like things, right, where there was like a game very similar, like a LARP game like that, but there
Right.
were wares, and it was very similar to like how True Blood kind of functioned.
Okay.
And there
Was it called Changeling?
Probably, I don't know.
Okay,
I can't
'cause
remember, dude.
it's
It was.
the same-
I was
same
trying to
company.
get. I was young. I was trying to get laid. I was
Yep.
in all sorts of weird circles.
Like, I was all over the place.
I was all over the fucking place. Like if I ended up during a communist rally, I might have been. I don't know. You know, I was
You're
desperate.
like, I was just around.
I was just everywhere. You know, I was like, yeah, I'll try that. Like, and I did one of those things, and they were wares. Like you could be aware, like those were panthers. Like I think the most common one was like a were leopard. And I was actually, there were vampires that like they hated each other, and Masquerade had had werewolves too. I think
I
was a werebear basically.
the company that owns White Wolf, the company that owns the property for Vampire the Masquerade, owns Werewolf, The Reckoning, or The Apocalypse, I think is what it is now.
So funny. I haven't heard somebody say the Masquerade in so fucking long.
They own a game called Changeling. They own a game called there's one about Maid. So basically the entire like premise of their alternate reality is that there is this level below the Underworld, 100%.
Yeah,
the easiest way to look at it. And then like this stuff predates Underworld by year. Like I was playing Vampire the Masquerade.
I swear to God, when Underworld
when
came
I
out,
was, like,
people were
17.
talking that was the movie version of Masquerade.
So the funny thing is Rob Zombie and Kate Beckinsale both play White Wolf Games.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
What is White Wolf game?
That's
the ones
the
we're talking
company
about.
that owns
Masquerade?
all this
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah.
But there's
So
two.
Kate
all the LARP
Beckinsale
games.
plays Masquerade.
There's two ways to play Vampire the Masquerade. There's sitting down at a table like you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, which is
Okay.
probably the way that I would imagine
that Kate Beckinsale
Kate
plays.
Beckinsale and
Kate
Rob
Beckinsale is the chick that from Underworld. Right? Okay,
Rob Zombie engaged in it. And then there's Theater of the Mind, which was the LARP side of it.
right.
But I don't know. I mean, like, honestly, like, again, we're talking early 90s goth scene, and there wasn't like you were either going to weird tech like German techno clubs.
How did you guys find out about this stuff?
So my best friend's dad, my best friend's dad in high school was dating a 24-year-old girl, was married to a 24-year-old girl who was from Louisiana. She was from New Orleans, and she was dumb into goth stuff. And we were 14, 15-year-olds.
Before like the internet.
Yeah, we were
No, high school. Okay, high school. No, not before the internet.
We were 14, 15-year-old kids. So I'm talking
Before cell phones.
96.
Yeah.
It's like right before cell phones.
Yeah, this is like pager era.
This is like AOL bulletin board era. internet.
Exactly.
Oh God, AOL.
Yeah.
and she was hot and she was gothy, and they were into this vampire thing, and it was pretty obvious correlation to us that if we wanted real pale chicks that liked red lipstick and had like black red hair, that we should probably engage in this vampire thing because those girls were there.
I mean, I like all those things.
Yeah. So that was the introduction. The falling out was that I started being a little bit more interested into people that liked to go out and do stuff during the day too. I didn't want to be super like I'm
they live it.
They never went out during the day. Like it was only at night.
Oh, what the fuck?
Yeah, I'm very
vampire people, man.
I'm very hair metal goth. Like if you had to put me in a box in the goth spectrum, I fall into like the Motley Crue hair metal style of goth.
I feel it.
Yeah, like fucking drinking and partying and being a wild animal is what I like about the goth scene. So I dated a girl from the vampire scene that like the two weirdest things that ever happened in our relationship is she wore a vial of my blood around her neck.
I remember you telling me about this.
And she gave me a vial of her blood. And then one of our first sexual experiences, she put she put roses on white satin sheets and had me lay down and then rode me, specifically because she wanted to blood stain the sheets with my blood so she could wash them and sleep in them.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And like, it was fun.
Interesting.
It was fun.
It was an experience.
For a couple months. and then literally my brain was like,
what's going on?
What are you doing?
Yeah. Yep. No, mine was I was not a popular dude with the ladies in high school.
Yeah.
And a buddy of mine, I was an overweight kid.
Yeah, same here.
You know, so I was always picked on for that. Which, well, I mean, it was good and bad because, like I said, I became a bully for a little while.
I was gonna say you're also a big guy.
Yeah, I'm a very large individual.
I was gonna say you're
literally
tall
just
and
showed you a
large.
picture of skinny skater.
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
I was 6'3" in like 8th grade.
Yeah, I was just short, fat guy.
Yeah, but like I've always been big, right? And you know, in high school, that's bad. You know, in high school, if you're big, you only date big girls.
Right.
And I'm not attracted to that. You know, like, I mean, you guys have all seen my track records. Like most of them. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like,
I'm just kidding.
I just can't help it. You know, it's the way I am. But
Emmett is so disappointed he's sleeping.
you know,
To be clear though, he was sleeping before, so maybe he doesn't care.
but I knew I had a buddy who was another big guy like me, and he killed it with the ladies. And I was like, what do you do? He's like, oh, bro, you just got to be around the right crowd.
Yeah.
And apparently that right crowd was vampire girls, and it was like, oh, cool, like, oh, they're into they're like goth chicks, rad, cool.
So you guys like sucking stuff, huh?
Well, no. So I'm getting there. No, I'm getting there. Right. So I was like, oh, cool, like they're goth chicks, cool. Like some of them are, like we were young, like we were pre-18 at this point, like we were like 16, 17, and it was like, oh, cool, like not many of them were like sexually active, but every one of them sucked dick. So it was like, all right, I'm gonna go. Like I'm gonna get a blowjob. Like that was the whole reason I went. Like I was like, this is gonna happen.
Yeah, I feel it.
Yeah, and it was great. I had a great time.
I totally was not seeing that coming.
I identified.
Pun intended.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, neither did
Tap
she.
me on the head twice. Tap me on the head twice to warn me. I legitimately just figured out relatively. Did you just get that?
No, it's just the image that popped up in my mind was you slapping the shit out of the person. Like,
I said tap me, not smack me.
You're like, well, it was.
Found out my new kink.
Instructions unclear. I don't.
Well, I mean, when you're a younger person, yeah, exactly. It's like you're like, oh,
Panic.
Yeah, it's kind of like and you either go or you slap.
That's when I found. That's when you end up finding something good. When you like your reaction is you smack, and then she looks at you and goes, "Do it again," and you're like, "Oh,
yeah."
You're like, "Oh, that's new."
So yeah, I mean, essentially a very similar introduction.
That's the reason we went to these.
We were like, oh, there's hot gothy girls, and we were stupid into like
there wasn't that, because you know what else I was doing? I was playing video games, and I was going to the Aerospace Museum a lot to study planes. There weren't many women that went there.
You want to know what Masquerade was for me? It was Vatos Locos.
Yep.
Yeah. You get the chicks that have tattooed eyebrows and
dated a couple
they
of
hated
those.
me because I would always ask, like I'm blonde, and I would literally go up to her and I'd be like, "Do you paint on your eyebrows?"
Oh yeah.
And they're like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." But like at that point too, like most of them had kids already. Like,
yeah, dude. My mom, she has no eyebrows anymore because she's plucked them so many times and just drew them in. So it was,
I dated a gal at one point who did permanent makeup tattooing.
Yeah, tattoos,
Yeah. She and I mean she was white girl, but she had her eyebrows were tattooed on. I think I mentioned her before. She was the girl who had somebody else tattooed her areolas into stars.
Oh yeah, okay. I think I remember.
Oh god, I remember. See, I was with the chick ones who had hearts. Yeah. And I thought it was it blew me away at first. I was like, "What the?" And I was like, "I don't know if I like that." And then I looked and I was like, "Oh, I like that." Like,
I still don't. I'm just kind of like, is that the first time I saw it? I was like, "Is that normal?" Like that.
You grow up on 3 Mile.
Wrong with you?
You grow up on 3 Mile Island, girl. I don't understand.
How'd you do that?
That's like,
did you put a cookie cutter on you?
So it's a weird tan.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I kind of graduated out of being involved in vampire that way.
No, dude, I did it I hung out with the group that did it because they all went to this one place afterwards that they would call the Cabana. And it was literally like a granny flat at one of their dudes, like one of the guys' houses where they would all go and they'd all hang out. I remember I went there once and I was like, "Cool. So what do you guys do now?" And they're like, "Oh, nothing." And everybody just kind of sat around and smoked weed and
they talk about their characters
and fall asleep. And like, I was like, this is lame.
Yeah.
I thought there was boning involved.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Well,
there is.
That was before going back there.
Okay.
Like the girls had paired up and left by that point, and it was the leftovers that ended up at this place.
Gotcha. Okay.
And there's stuff that happens. I'm assuming it still does on site. But yeah, no, I had figured out pretty quick that I liked running the game. I liked telling stories. Yeah. That's real fucking weird, right? And then that's actually my introduction to that lens of, if I'm running an event, I'm more comfortable than being part of the event.
And there's something too being said, like bringing us, to the topic of the podcast. There's something too to be said about playing a game involving monsters and things like that,
Right.
while being at a location.
Oh, yeah.
Where you change the location depending on the story that you're telling.
Right.
So, like that was the aspect that I liked. I liked that like when we went somewhere, we actually had to walk somewhere.
Yeah, you physically walk somewhere.
Yeah, and like you're in a group and like, you're not necessarily sneaking around a bush, but you're telling it that you are and you're moving in that kind of position.
And the other thing is a lot of times these games, this style LARP game, just like Airsoft, which is LARP, or Wasteland, which is LARP, the areas that they choose to host them in have some like ambiance to them. Like SDSU has a bunch of old Spanish buildings. The city hall in Escondido is a fucking weird looking building with some weird land around it. Like there are always these.
I was gonna say, go do it in Old Town.
Yeah,
That'll
people used to do it in
freak you
Old
the
Town.
fuck
Yeah.
out.
Well, they used to do it
2 in the morning in Old Town.
Yeah.
Well,
no
until
thanks.
Whaley House started getting really creepy.
Yeah, no shit,
yeah,
right?
they couldn't-
Oh yeah, the chick.
I mean, no, dude, Whaley House is fucking haunted as
Yeah,
fuck. Like,
no.
that place.
Yeah, it's dude.
Like it is
Gives
not.
me
It
chills
is
thinking
not. No,
about
it
it.
is not a joke.
Yeah,
Like,
I know.
So speaking of haunting,
Hey.
last time, it waxing poetic about olds. It's cool. I didn't even know we shared that. That's interesting.
it makes sense. Like when you think about it, and the crowds that we used to run in, like back in the day.
So last time on Lorus Obscurus, Beast brought up a story featuring a woman in white. Even though we very quickly went over them at that point last episode, we wanted to take a deeper look at this paranormal phenomenon, just like last
the woman
time.
in white?
Yep.
Yeah.
Just like last time we covered the Dark Watchers. So a white lady or a lady in white is a type of female ghost that typically dresses in a white dress or similar garment and is mostly seen in rural areas, and they're associated, generally speaking, with a local tragedy or local tragedies.
Now, would La Llorona be considered a white lady?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Very much.
So white lady legends are found in many countries around the world. Common to many of these legends is an accidental death, murder, or suicide, and the theme of loss, betrayal of either a husband or a fiance, or an unrequited love. So they're in love with somebody and they're not loved back. We're only going to touch specifically just because of time on the United Kingdom and the United States, because there's a bunch.
Yeah,
but
there's enough there.
La Lorena, lost children, now seeks to drown other children to fill that hole, is a woman in white story.
That movie was good.
Yeah. So, fun fact: I don't know if you guys know who Angry Joe is.
Yep.
The YouTuber.
Yep.
His cousin was the one who played the woman.
Oh, really?
Oh, that's super cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
He mentioned in one of his videos, like, yeah, that's my cousin, such and such. And I was like, oh, that's fucking cool.
That's dope, man.
Yeah, she did great.
Yeah, right.
She did awesome
Right?
as that. Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, that was what is it? There's the Tooth Fairy. The Tooth Fairy.
Tooth Fairy, what the fuck?
Yeah. It's a woman.
Scary movie?
Yeah. No. Well, I mean, they did
Darkness Falls.
they did make it's a shitty movie about it, but it's based on that movie was really bad. But
It's a shitty movie, but it has one of my favorite reaction scenes of like a normal person to a ghost ever.
Where?
She fucking flies into the like middle school or whatever, and there's a cop there, and he literally just starts shooting at her with his shotgun.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't run away. He doesn't freak out. He doesn't go, "It's a ghost. I need salt." He literally does what a cop would do when being threatened with something like that. He shoots it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course he dies because it's a ghost. But like literally, I'm like, that's a perfect reaction.
Yeah, that's what I would have done. Yeah.
Yeah. Like he shoots her like 4 times and just like rips up the ceiling. But anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean.
Yeah, well, no, like it's based on basically a white dress story. Like it's an old woman who was like a dentist apprentice or something, and the husband was the dentist, and the husband was killed by like an angry person, and she basically dies of loneliness, but haunts people and takes their teeth.
Oh,
That's so awesome.
it's like
I'm
evil Tooth Fairy.
collecting the teeth from my husband.
Yeah, like I can't remember exactly like the true like the original whatever like
We can try. We can try. I mean, if you guys want, Lorus Obscurus episode 4, you want me to look up
Tooth
the
Fairy.
Tooth Fairy?
Yeah.
Cool.
Actually, what I'd really like us to talk about would be
More vampire stuff.
Bigfoot.
Bigfoot. Oh yeah,
I am a huge
Bigfoot. We got to get into.
I am a very, very, very well versed on Bigfoot.
Bigfootologist.
Yes. Like I am very much like, if I didn't have a job, I would absolutely be a Bigfoot hunter. Like 100%. Like Bigfoot fascinates the hell out of me.
You think he exists?
No.
Okay. But you go look for it.
But I think something does. I think there's something that we are seeing that, because some of this stuff is like there's shit out there, right? But I've learned in like there's recorded evidence of these things talking, right? Like I'm already like goosebumps already, right?
Like feral people.
No, like the closest thing I can relate it to was like Chinese or Japanese. It sounded like they were speaking Japanese. And the whole thing of like Bigfoot being this peaceful animal, no.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. It is violent. It is aggressive. Like, and whatever it is, like, there's so many like different theories, but
what if it's like just a Japanese dude in a suit?
no. So that's
the King Kong suit zipper got stuck and he's just really mad.
My thing is that it's actually
like a spy,
Neanderthals,
like a lost chunk of humanity
Neanderthal.
or whatever.
It's our Neanderthal relatives.
But I mean, if it's Neanderthals, they'd be dumb enough to get caught,
but that's the thing. Like, you got to remember, Neanderthals were better equipped.
We share like 85% of our mental.
They were better equipped at surviving harsh conditions than Cro-Magnons. Cro-Magnons were just smart and worked their way around it.
Well, like with satellite imagery and like all the.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, like I said, it's a long shot, but you
think the government is like turning a blind eye kind of thing?
Have you ever heard of the missing 411? So this is the whole idea that like people go missing in national
like
parks all the time.
Per year.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's the whole idea behind that is that Teddy Roosevelt set up the National Park Service specifically to hide these things from us. This is a whole other episode.
Yeah.
This is more along the lines of like what do you call it? Like the fuck is it? Like National Enquirer type shit, right?
Yeah, this is all like fringe. This is probably like mid-level conspiracy theory stuff.
Right.
Yeah. There's some. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think it's necessarily too much political stuff.
It's still interesting though.
Yeah.
That's why I said mid-level. It's not quite into.
I'm just obsessed with Bigfoot.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed. Like anytime there's like a Bigfoot thing where it's like Bigfoot's like, oh, someone was killed. I'm like, oh, let me listen.
That's
like,
cool.
LARP
That's
with
cool.
Bigfoot people,
right?
So to get back,
what type of women go?
to get back to
foot stuff.
what do you do? Foot stuff? It's Bigfoot. Of course they do. It's all foot stuff. It's all toes, brother.
Like big hairy creatures.
Like stupid question. Get out of here.
So to get back to white ladies, in popular medieval legend, a white lady is fabled to appear both day and night in a house in which a family member is soon to die. They also appear within photos just before or after death. These spirits were regarded as the ghost of deceased ancestors. Ladies in white have been encountered all over the world. So we're going to give you guys a taste, as I mentioned earlier. So in the United Kingdom, we're going to look at England first. Tales from England also suggest that the white lady may be a victim of murder or suicide who died before she could tell anyone the location of some sort of hidden treasure. Around 2019, the castle of Blenkinsop in Northumberland. It's
Blenkinsop and it's Northumberland.
Okay, cool. Was occupied by a family. One night, the parents woke to their boy screaming, "The white lady, the white lady." By the time they arrived at his bedside, she had vanished. However, the boy reported that the lady had been angry and tried to take him away after he refused to accompany her to a box of gold that was buried somewhere in the vaults below. The same event took place the following 3 nights. When the child began sleeping with his parents, the white lady no longer disturbed him, but he never again traveled through the castle alone for fear of encountering her. Another white lady, this time also known as the Running Lady of Beeford, East Yorkshire, is often seen on a stretch of road called Beeford Strait. Motorists have reported seeing her apparition. Befford?
That noise is the dog snoring.
The dog is snoring.
Dude, I'm like,
so what is that?
Yeah, I'm like, do you guys hear that? Sounds like moaning, like something in the.
It's Emmett.
Moaning.
It's Emmett.
It's the dog snoring.
Motorists have reported seeing her apparition running across the Befford Strait.
Befford, yeah.
Okay, towards the junction of North Fordingham. There are also reports of motorcyclists picking up a female hitchhiker on the same stretch of road. A few miles later, the motorcyclist, upon turning around, notices that the passenger has vanished. In another instance, a car crashed into a tree, killing 6 people. It is rumored that the white lady cursed the car. In another story, a white lady is seen retracing her steps. She was said to have jumped off of Portchester Castle while trying to retrieve her fallen child. Her spirit is said to haunt the castle. There is an old ballad sung about a ghost, which is haunting Oakhampton Castle. I get that one right?
I can't see it.
Okehampton.
Oakhampton.
Oakhampton. My lady hath a sable coach with horses 2 and 4. My lady hath a gaunt bloodhound that goeth before. My lady's coach hath nodding plumes. The driver hath no head. My lady is an ashen white as one who is long dead.
Oh, ashen white. I've heard that before.
This lady is rumored to be a Howard lady of 17th century who has murdered several husbands and children of hers. Her curse is to collect grass blades in the castle ruins until the end of all time. No historical events or persons have ever been found to corroborate any of this, though. The ghost of a Pomery lady, Matilda, or Margaret, may haunt Barry Pomery Castle as a harbinger of death to everyone to see her in the dungeon of St. Margaret Tower. Matilda is said to have been starved to death by her sister in the same dungeon.
Dude, fuck all that noise, man. Like that, even that name is creepy. Like, hey, man, be careful, Matilda. She around the corner.
I love that name.
I know. Creeps the fuck out of me, dude.
If I ever have a daughter, I was going to name her Matilda.
I'm sorry.
So to jump into Wales, in Welsh tradition,
oh God, here we go.
Ye Lady Wen, the White Lady, or Dains Man Gwen, Woman in White, is a common apparition in Celtic mythology of Wales. Dressed in white and most common at Galen Gaif. I have no idea if I am pronouncing any of these Welsh words right, guys. Sorry.
Sorry, nobody cares.
The Welsh Halloween. She was often invoked to warn children about bad behavior. Ye Lady Wen is characterized in various ways, including being a terrifying ghost who may ask for help if you speak to her. Ye Lady Wen is also associated with restless spirits guarding hidden treasures. Best known example of this is at Ogmore Bridgend. The story also contains many aspects common to such Celtic and Welsh stories, including a hidden cauldron, changing physical characteristics, and chastising the morality of men. She is a spirit long said to wander the area until a man finally approached her. When such a man eventually does so, the spirit led him to a treasure, a cauldron filled with gold, hidden under a heavy stone within the old tower of Ogmore Castle, and allowed the man to take half the treasure for himself. However, this man later returned and took the rest of it. This angered the spirit, who, with her fingers turning into claws, attacked the man as he returned home. The man became gravely ill, but only died once he had confessed to his greed. After that, an ailment known as Ye Lady Wen's Revenge was said to befall any person who died before disclosing where they had hidden their treasure. Sightings and tales of Ye Lady Wen can be found throughout Wales. The village of Iwenny has both a White Lady Meadow and a White Lady's Lane, and St. Antha also has a tradition of Ye Lady Wen. To jump over the pond to the United States, a White Lady is said to haunt Dunard Eastman. Oh, wow. I don't need to pronounce things weird anymore, right, guys? A White Lady is said to haunt Durnard Eastman Park in Rochester, New York, also known as a lady in the lake. The 19th century White Lady wanders the park area, obsessively looking for her daughter's body, who was slain by a boyfriend or a group of hoodlums, depending on who tells the story. Legend has it that the human White Lady either killed herself in grief or died of brokenheartedness. The Lady in White, or the White Lady of Avenel, is the most commonly reported apparition at Avenel in Bedford, Virginia. The apparition is thought to be Mary Frances Fran Burwell of the Burwell family of Virginia. The legend has it that she stayed on the front porch waiting for her husband to come home from the Civil War, but he never did. The Union Cemetery in Easton, Connecticut has reported sightings of a White Lady since the late 1940s, said to haunt the nearby Stepney Cemetery in Monroe, Connecticut. Tomato Cemetery in St. Augustine, Florida, has been home to stories of a haunting by a lady in white since the 19th century. Legend states that the ghost is the spirit of a young woman who died suddenly on her way to being married and was buried in her wedding dress.
Creepy.
In Muckalito, Washington, there have been reports of a lady in white who is a vanishing hitchhiker just off Clearview Drive in the forest or on the road near the tree line. The sightings of Resurrection Mary in Chicago, Illinois are also both the white lady and the vanishing hitchhiker type of legend. In Madisonville, Louisiana, legends speak about a woman called the Silk Lady. Her ghost is said to haunt Palmetto Flats by Highway 22. The story goes that back in the mid-1800s, a woman was riding back from town after seeing her lover off. She was riding down an old logging trail when a snake spooked her horse. She fell, hit her head, and died. Several people have reported her as a woman dressed in a wispy silk dress and her feet don't appear to touch the ground.
I've heard that one before.
Fuck that noise.
When she sees someone, she is said to cackle like a banshee.
Ooh, and her feet don't touch the ground? Bitch.
Right? In Altoona, Pennsylvania, she is known as a White Lady of Wapsie. Her ghost is said to haunt Wapsonanook Mountain.
Yeah.
In the Buckhorn Mountains in the western part of Altoona. It is said that she and her husband had an ill-fated crash over what is known as Devil's Elbow, with both of them tumbling over the side of the mountain. According to the legend, she is seen looking for her husband on foggy nights, but has been picked up as a hitchhiker, and her reflection is never seen in a mirror, but she always disappears when you reach Devil's Elbow.
And they must have been on the devil's lettuce.
The devil's lettuce. In Yermo, California, at the Calico Ghost Town, author Lauren Morgan Richards is said to have seen the ghost of a white lady up close while it roamed the outskirts of town, and he wrote about it in detail in his book, Welsh in the Old West. In Fremont, California, where a lady of white called the White Witch, ghost sightings have been seen in Niles Canyon. A woman named Lori was one of the first people in the area killed in an automobile accident. People claim to have seen her in the cemetery in the area along with strange lights. Local legend says you can see her walking the ridge between Niles' Hollywood-style sign and the canyon below. In Hattiesburg, Mississippi, a woman in white is connected to the Burnt Bridge Road's history. In 1970, a woman was killed in a car accident while crossing a wooden bridge over a small gully. The resulting fire destroyed the bridge, which was later rebuilt in concrete and gave the road its new name. The charred and decayed remains of the original bridge, however, can still be seen near the new bridge. That reminds me of out here, where there's that old fucking bridge that you can see, a couple miles from here.
Are you talking about the one in the park?
The old 76 bridge.
I think I know which one you're talking about. Yeah. I didn't know if you're talking about all the ones by my house.
Oh, no, not that close. Finally, in Dallas, Texas, at White Rock Lake Park, it is reported that the ghost of a 20-year-old looking girl known as the Lady of White Rock Lake, described as wearing a water-soaked 1930s evening dress, who usually appears at night along the roadside of East Lother Drive. Witnesses claim that the phantom asks to be taken to her home on Gaston Avenue in Dallas before disappearing in the car during the ride, leaving behind a waterlogged car seat. Legend claims the woman to be a drowning victim from a boating accident in the 1930s. Reports of a ghostly encounters were published in Dallas area newspapers during the 1960s.
I'm telling you, man, the drowning ones are the worst.
Right? Fuck all that.
There isn't one of fucking Whaley House, the woman in white in Whaley House?
There isn't. I don't know that one, but I have actually had a lady in white experience.
I have not. I mean, not in this sense. I mean, I could share the story. It's more sad than anything, but it's also interesting. You can share yours first, unless you want me to share mine. Mine's gonna almost ruin the mood if you want me to go last or
Here's
first.
The black dog story? No,
mine's like it's a different kind of lady in white thing.
Is it really sad or is it funny?
No, it's sad.
You want to tell your mine's creepy, but not very long.
Neither is mine.
You want to tell yours first?
Do you have any stories?
Do you have a spooky dookie for today?
I have a spooky dookie for tonight, but it's not a white lady.
All right. Well, I'll set mine, and then you guys can cheer. You guys can cheer it up. Okay. All right. So about like 6 years ago, my sister and my brother-in-law, rest in peace, they passed away. They got hit by a drunk driver on their motorcycle the day before my sister's birthday. It was obviously devastating to my family and myself. Again, like I said, it's gonna ruin the mood, but I mean, you guys, I keep it high. I keep this on a high note. But the interesting part of it was that, and I want to say my brother had the same experience, but obviously, you're kind of dealing with grief. Yeah, I didn't have a good relationship with my brother-in-law like the last, I want to say, like maybe month before he passed away. And before that, we were great. But a week after they passed away, I had a dream. And in this dream, it was and I'm pretty sure you guys have heard stuff like this, right? Where like you're sitting in a white room and my sister was dressed in white. It was like I felt like we were talking for hours just about life. And then finally at the end of when we were talking, it was like saying goodbye.
Okay.
And the next day, like I woke up and I was like, fuck, man, that was gnarly. Like
that was intense. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I asked my brother, I was like, hey, and I want to say he had a very similar experience too. And then the next night, I didn't have a good, like I said, a good relationship with my brother last month. We were going through a bunch of BS, but I had another dream that I was in the Middle East. My brother deployed. He was in the army. And
is your brother-in-law?
Brother-in-law, sorry. Yeah. And I was I was doing convoy security. And I was on the 50, my brother was in the 50, my brother-in-law was in the 50 in front of me. And I remember his Humvee stopping and then him turning around and looking at me and then pointing to go inside a building. So I go inside this building and there's a guy pointing a gun at me when I turn back around after I clear the room in the doorway. So like he came in after me and my brother-in-law is standing behind this guy and he's just like, do it. And I'm like pointing my gun at this guy and I'm just like, what, why? He's just like, do it. And like, it kind of went back and forth. And like, as I was waking up and coming to, like my hand was kind of like in a cone and I was jabbing myself in the chest, like really hard, like to the point where I was like, there's scratches like all over my chest. Cause I felt like I was like trying to wake myself up, but it was just a very weird, like, it was almost like it felt like he was like testing me, I guess, in a way or something. I don't know. It was just a really weird interaction, but I just thought it was super weird that like I have that interaction with like my sister the day before. And then that was kind of the dream that followed. And like, I never really like thought too much about it, but it was just kind of like after, like, what do you guys believe? Like after death, like what happens? Like, do you go somewhere? What do you guys think? I'm just curious personally.
I mean, I kind of have a nature worship sort of background.
Like go back to the earth kind of thing.
Yeah. Go back into a continuation of everything.
Right. But like consciousness gone, right? Like, no, you're not reborn. You're not like going into paradise. I mean, this is more like a personal question. You guys don't have to answer.
I don't believe in the, I guess, metaphysical planes of reality that would be heaven and hell.
Right.
But I don't necessarily think that our energy is wasted. I don't think it vanishes. I think it, I think we rejoin with whatever great cycle exists, and whatever expression can come out of that great cycle is the expression that can come out of that great cycle.
I feel it, Tom. You've also dealt with loss, right?
No, that's why I'm
and I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's just, it's like,
it's weird, right?
You took me right back to mine.
I know.
And
that's why I was like, I don't know if I want to go first.
Yeah, no, you took
but it's definitely an experience. Like,
because I had the same thing.
Did you?
Yeah,
because you lost your father.
Yeah,
right? I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I mean, to answer your question, my dad always told me that when my granddad died, that there was a place that we went where it was everything we wanted, and it was like, my granddad was up there fishing, and, as you get older, you kind of end up developing your own thing. And, mine's always kind of circled around that. But I actually it's just sounds good. Like, I don't know. Right. I don't know. I could guess all day long. I don't know. What sounds really nice is something I kind of figured out myself when I lost my dad. Mm-hmm. I feel that, like, it's sort of based on the Gaia theory, which is kind of what Ryan was talking about, but it's all about energy and transference of energy, things like that. But to me, it's kind of like this, like, we're all on this plane of existence, and it is our job in our life to experience one emotion to its fullest potential, right? To its fullest extent, whether it be love, whether it be hate, whether it be, sadness, whenever joy. Yeah. I feel that everybody is meant to feel one emotion to its fullest before we die. And when we die, we take that experience back with us, and then we start over for the next until we have experienced every human emotion possible. And that's when we fully return to whatever the energy is out there in the world, like whatever in the universe, like, and it's super, super gaudy, like super like, spiritual energy. But the only reason I say that is because for me in my life, my one emotion that I have felt to the fullest in every extent is loss. I've lost a lot of people very close to me, and I've seen and watched people die and in the most horrific of ways. And so for me, my feeling has always been that, like, that's what I've thought it is. And I'm trying not to go deep because I feel like you fucked me up with your story. I know. I'm trying not to dive into it, but I'm like, that's where I'm at with it,
Mark and I had an open, Mark knows something about my past that I opened up to him yesterday, and the second half of his story hit real hard.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. And that's why I was like, fuck, I mean, it is a story of a woman in white, my sister being the woman in white, but it's not the traditional woman in white. And I don't know if you guys,
I've never experienced it. At least I don't think I've experienced it because memory is fallible. Like we have a very hard time remembering things, especially from dream states. But not that I'm questioning. That's just
fun.
That's
I
just
agree.
how it works. So I don't know if I've actually had an experience like that, but I know that it's actually like a documented phenomenon where like
people say goodbye.
Somebody passes away and they don't have a chance to say goodbye, and then like your little kid will come in and be like pop, grandpa's sitting on the couch,
right?
And their reaction is no. Your grandpa, you get mad because your father just died and now your son's saying this weird shit.
Right.
But then you get up and you walk out because he's insistent. And sure enough, your father's sitting on the couch and your kid says like, oh, I just had a nice conversation with grandpa. And then the image of your father or whatever fades. That's a really common phenomenon in loss.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering if it's maybe just a way of grieving or if it's an actual thing, because
it could be that energy wanting to let you know that it's okay.
Right.
And in my belief structure, there's nothing that says that it isn't possible in the case,
right?
Especially with like bear and badger, not bear medicine, but badger medicine and coyote medicine. The whole idea of it. So in when I say medicine, I don't mean like medical medicine. I mean magic. But in those two concepts, the idea that like the separation between our world and the spirit world has a permeability to it, and that permeability, depending on where you are, can allow feelings to be passed forward. And how our brains interpret those feelings, it could be your sister sent you a very warm emotion and feeling of love, and that's how it manifested. And it could be that you're
or my brain is trying to cope with process a traumatic experience by grieving in a certain way that would help me work it through.
I don't have like sleep paralysis, but every once in a while something happens in my brain where whatever I'm experiencing is fucking horrible. Like whatever I'm recalling is fucking horrible. And I know that I'm in a dream. So I start screaming for my significant other who and she nudges me awake because she goes, you aren't screaming, but you are moaning really loudly. And like it triggers her to know to wake me up. And I don't know what connection we share, but like my brain inherently knows that I'm in a dream state that isn't healthy, and it's screaming to break me out of that dream state. And her reaction inherently knows that I'm in distress and wakes me up, it's these levels of, I don't know, synchronicity or like shared unity that we seem to have as a human species. And I guess that's why my brain doesn't go to the prescient belief that there is the a heaven dimension or a hell dimension or a purgatory dimension. I kind of go with this idea that everything's like kind of like a background radiation, or like if you want to call it the force, because you need a framing the force,
right?
But like this Gaia, this ever existing permanence, I guess.
I feel you, and I'm sorry for ruining the mood for you guys. It was an interesting experience that I wanted to share, because it's an interesting conversation to have.
Yeah, it still stuff like this still falls into paranormal because we don't have framing to explain what it is or why it happened.
Right.
And it's part of these weird things we experience. And, sometimes they're super close to home and they hit real hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me about it. But what is your scary woman in white story? Right.
So there is an area local to where we live, where I grew up and went to high school, called Elfin Forest. And Elfin Forest has a lot of legends. So one of the reasons that I really wanted to dive into Lady in White and give some examples of different things that happen in different countries and all around the United States is because these stories are very common and very, very repeated. This is a very repeated phenomenon. Whether or not it's documented or true, I'm not going to pass judgment on, but a lot of people seem to experience these things. And the Elfin Forest is the area here where a lot of this stuff happens. I could probably do like an exploration episode if we wanted to on the Elfin Forest, but it's just a very creepy area. Old gnarled oak trees, old growth. Right? It's a very, very old part of California, Southern California. It's gentrifying now. There's hiking trails and rich ass houses out there. But when I was in high school, it was chicken farms and, cow pastures and these 100, 200, 300 acre properties that were given over to agrarian purposes. And half of them are overgrown. Part of what's out there, just to kind of lay a background, is there is a cult that exists in Southern California. And I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that they're attached to the Moonies. If you guys know who the Moonies are, they're a splinter.
The name is familiar.
It's like pre Jim Jones. It's before Jim Jones like took over and became Jim Jones style.
I don't know who that is.
There's a guy, Jamestown. He took a bunch of people down to Ghana, and then they all drank. They're drinking the Kool-Aid. Yeah, they're drinking the punch.
Okay.
So anyway, I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to do a little bit more research, but there's a Christian retreat out there called Quest Haven, and all the people who belong to Quest Haven are like, you have to wear floor length dresses, and all the like elder, like the women elders, they wear like nun habits, but they're completely white. Like they're made out of like natural wool fabrics and they're completely white. They're not dyed at all. It's all natural stuff. And it's just kind of a spooky dookie place.
Yeah.
But it was the place that we went in high school to creep the crap out of the girls we were with so we could get some, to return to the vampire part from earlier. Like there's a documented, you scare the shit out of each other and then you get laid. And it's kind of a teenage thing. And usually the other thing that's really interesting about all these stories is they're usually really close to like lovers' lanes. There's this whole idea of like the places that teenagers go are the area that
the town that dreaded sundown.
Yeah. But so we were out in Elfin Forest one night, and this was kind of before I really knew anything. I knew that there was a cult out there, and I knew that there were Satanists out there, because that was the lore. Mm-hmm. There's reasons for it, which again, it could be its own fucking episode. But we're driving up this road called Quest Haven Road because we're trying to get as close to the retreat as possible. Because the retreat had a bunch of like security guards and chase you off.
Oh, so there's actually people there.
There's a legitimate retreat up there. It actually exists. So the lore says that it used to be an insane asylum, and then it was bought by this church and it was turned into a retreat. That's not true. The insane asylum was probably closer to the wing place that we eat. There's that 24-hour fitness on that hill. Right. That's probably where the asylum used to be.
Gotcha.
But anyway, you know how stories happen. Like they fucking evolve.
Yeah.
And, so back in high school, we're trying to get as close to this asylum as we could because we're trying to freak each other out. And we're driving up. My buddy Dan's driving up this road in a red Honda CRX. CRX, yeah. Two-door Honda. There's 4 of us in the car. There's 2 girls in the back, and there's Dan and I in the front. And we're driving up this road, and I see this woman on the side of the road. And I'm like, hey, Dan, pull over. She looks like she needs help. And this woman is standing maybe 25 feet into the trees, into these old gnarled oak trees. And he's like, yeah, sure. And he pulls over.
Fuck that.
and he lets me out, and I walk into the woods a little bit, and he calls me. He's like, hey, dude, she's not there. Like, I don't know where you're going. Like, there's no one there. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, I swore I saw something too, but she's not there. And I turned back around to where I'd seen them, because I'd been walking towards the woman like, hey, ma'am, like, do you need help? Because she's like, it was like crying or like, knelt over or whatever. And it was very obvious she was in distress. And sure as fuck, there's no one there. So, we all get out of the car. The girls turn on flashlights. We get the big ass fucking old, like, beat a person to death flashlights, and we're shining them in. We're shining them into the forest, and we're trying to see if there's anybody around. And like I say forest, like the grove of trees, not really a forest, and we're not seeing anything. And finally, my buddy Dan's like, hey, there's a bunch of weird guys out here. Like, there's meth heads and shit out here. Like, let's get back in the car. We need to go. Like, we can't stay around.
That would have been my first thought. I would have been like, no, fuck this.
Crazy crackheads running around.
You hear your feet scratching on the roof of your car.
Yeah. So we drive further up, and we get to this gate, and there's like this little area where we can pull over. We pull over, we get out, and we start walking towards where we know the retreat is. We get about halfway to where the edge of the retreat gates are, and all the lights come on. And the security guard, like over the bullhorn, basically tells us to go away, because they're used to this. They're used to fucking teenagers going up at this point in history. They're used to teenagers going up and fucking with the place. They're like, you guys need to leave. Like, you're not allowed to be here. We're going to call the cops, all that shit. So we get noticeably freaked out by that, which, like, I just realized as I'm telling this story now at my age, I'd be like, fuck you, call the cops. I have every right to be here. But anyway, at that time, it worked. It freaked us out. So we go back, we start walking back to Dan's car. And again, like, there's all this commotion and shit going on now. One of the girls says, that woman is following us. And I turn around, and sure enough, it's this woman in white following us. And I'm like, all right, well, let's just go back to the car and we'll leave. Get back to the car. And she's like, she's still there. And now I'm like a little, like, I'm bravado, right? I'm gonna protect the women. I ain't gonna get one of them. I'm gonna get both of them, because I'm gonna act all brave. So I walk towards this woman, and I get like halfway there, and Dan goes, get in the fucking car now. And I'm like, what? And I turn around, and he's like, right now. And I go back to the car, like, I fucking hop in the car because he's insistent, and we drive off. And I'm like, what the fuck? And he's like, she was standing in front of the car. Did you not see her? And I'm like, no, she was back there. And he's like, no, she was in front of the car. Whatever the fuck's going on, we need to get the fuck out. And as we're driving down this little dirt road back towards the main road, everybody in the car except me swears to God that this woman was chasing us along the side.
Yeah.
And it's just this woman in white. So we get back, and we do a little bit of quick research, and we ask a couple of questions over the next couple of months, like the next couple of weeks. And we find out that apparently, this is a local legend, this woman was on her wedding day. She was on the back of a motorcycle, like the 60s. And they went around that bend, because there's a big bend out there on Harmony Grove Road that kind of goes around before you go up to San Aleo. And she fell off the back of the motorcycle and cracked her skull open and died. And that's the woman in white that people see out there. And she's trying to get help, but the way she does it is she apparently gets in people's cars and then vanishes.
Oh, can you imagine if she just popped up in the car?
Oh my God, dude. Oh my God. We pissed ourselves.
I would literally shit.
We pissed ourselves.
I would just shit.
But so here's
the car.
I got a Nurgle nugget in my pants.
Yeah. So here's the weird thing about that, right? Like, I don't know. Like I'll tell you right now, I know I saw all that shit. But knowing what I know about the human brain, and especially being in a like sexually charged environment where we're trying to freak each other out at like 16, 17, I don't know how much of that shit was like post-hypnotic suggestion. I have no idea how much of that was the girls were like, there's something out there. And then like we psyched ourselves up. And now I'm just remembering it 15 years later. out of order or whatever.
Yeah.
But like,
No,
still telling you
You
guys,
were walking towards her, and it was a fridge.
right?
You know, like it was an old fridge in the trees. Yeah, you know, like it's an old fridge in the trees. They're walking out. No, I've been out
Or like a
somewhere
bugger
where
rock.
I was working security for a ranch from border hoppers. So I
Okay.
was out there looking for people.
Yeah.
And I swear to God, I was looking through my night vision scope and I was looking at this dude hunched over, curled in a ball, sitting there. And the more I looked at it, the more he looked like a dude curled over in a ball on the ground till we finally walked up and it was a bush.
It's so
you know,
weird,
like,
man.
but like the more you look at it, the more you're like, that's definitely a person.
There's a person there.
And then you walk up and
now,
you're like, it's a shrub.
we
Like,
now have to go look at it.
yeah, exactly. It was one of those where it was like, cool, let's go. Like, it's like, nope, it's a shrub. Like,
You're like bushes are looking like people, and I'm
Yeah,
hearing
well,
a baby cry. I'm leaving.
no, and that was the thing is like the guy, like my partner that I was with, he didn't see it at first, but when I told him what it was, he saw it. You know, so it's one of those things. It's like I was like, you don't see a dude like curled over, and he's like, oh my God, it is. You know, and it's like it's one of those things where it's like I could tell you could have been a fucking refrigerator.
Right,
And she was like, there's a woman over there, and then you're like, that refrigerator's a woman. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like
'Cause
your
our-
brain just is like, oh, there it is. Like,
Our brains are built to recognize patterns. Like
Yeah.
it's the thing that separates us from the elegant Emmett. So we do that. We see faces in places that there aren't faces. It's the reason that people see like Jesus and a loaf of bread and stuff like that.
Abraham Lincoln out of a sock.
Yeah. So do you have a spooky dookie for us tonight?
Yeah. So this one, it goes back to a little bit more tying to like my Bigfoot thing.
Okay.
But it's really just about animals, right? Like I think we've all kind of had an experience where there's an animal that you can't quite, doesn't act like an animal, you know?
Oh yeah.
Like
Like a skinwalker?
yeah. So this one, I'm almost like it was, so the scariest aspect for me was that in this situation, I lost track of time. My buddy who was behind me, didn't lose track of time. So there's a gap that is really weird and I can't explain. So we were staying, we were coming home super late one night and we were coming from out east, actually out of this ranch that I used to work out at. And it was awesome, dude. I worked out of this horse ranch. These people were really cool. They used to let us do whatever we wanted. I used to go out there and like build roads for them and stuff because I knew how to operate machinery. It's actually how I met them. And they were like, hey, you know, we've got a problem with border hoppers. Like, would you guys like to camp out a couple nights? Like, we'll feed you. And like, when they fed you, they fed you. You know what I mean? Like, it was like good old like country, like
Ranch
Dutch
style
oven.
eating.
Yeah, Dutch oven, like red beans. Like,
Oh,
bro.
yeah.
And so me and my buddy and like another one of our friends, like we'd go out there every once in a while when we had a night to ourselves and we'd, you know, basically cowboy it. We'd camp out overnight. We'd all be with our shotguns and rifles and just keep an eye on the property. So we were coming back one night and it was probably 2 or 3 in the morning, right? Like right around like that weird time.
Witching hour.
Yeah. And driving home, mind you, we're coming from east, like far east, which is like the canyons, right? Like, I don't
Okay.
know if you know Deerhorn Valley,
Yep.
like out there. So when you're driving back, you're on a 1-lane road. Like you're in one lane, the opposite traffic's in the other lane. And we were having all sorts of shit. Like this wasn't a night that we like, there's a dude, oh, it's a bush. But you have all night like that, right? You're driving home in the dark,
Mhm.
right? And a coyote ran out in front of us, right? And I mean, whatever, like, oh shit, like coyote, oh God, you know, and like we swerved and he jumped into the middle of the road and he just kept running. And he was like running like the same direction. Well, like I had slowed down at this point, so I wasn't going to hit him, but he wouldn't move. Like he wouldn't get away. He wouldn't go away. He wouldn't do whatever. He was just staying in the center of the road and running along. And so finally, like I sped up and then he scared off. Right. And I was like, man, that was fucking weird. Like never seen a coyote do that before, you know, like
Yeah.
usually they run across, they don't run down the road with you, you know?
That's because it wasn't a coyote.
Well, so whatever. Okay, here's the thing that happened, right? And we're like, oh man. And so the whole drive home, we're like, dude, that was fucking weird, wasn't it? Yeah, I don't know. So we get back to our buddy's house where my friend has dropped his car off, right? So I'm driving everybody back to their cars. My buddy whose house we go to, he goes to bed. Me and my other friend, we're now leaving. I'm in my car, he's in his. And it's like old town Bonita, you know, like out by the mall. Out
Yeah,
in
out by
Bonita.
Plaza.
Yeah. So it's like in the nooks and crannies out there. And we're leaving, and the way that these, like, they're old streets where they're literally just a road. There's no lanes. It's just curvy, windy roads in between houses. And these are all like old not farmhouses, but like they've got big lots. Like they're homes on big lots, and they have big fences and all this stuff. And I mean, it's like one street lamp every like once in a while. So it's pretty dark, you know? And so I'm driving. My buddy's in his car behind me, right? And I've got my big red like Pathfinder. Like that was my big SUV that I had at the time, which I guess isn't that big now, but it's big to me. So I was driving and I turned this corner, and this corner's right underneath the streetlight. So I'm driving down, and it's like you're going downhill, and then you make this turn and it levels out. So I make the turn, right? And I'm about just to enter into like the apex of the turn. And the biggest owl I've ever seen in my life literally lands in front of me, right? So for starters, I'm like, oh shit. Like, and I'm thinking like, oh fuck, and I slam on my brakes because I don't know what it is. I just see something.
You're alone, right?
I'm alone in my car, but my buddy is right behind me.
Oh, okay.
In his car. Well, so I slam on my brakes and I think, holy shit, like I'm about to hit an animal, right? So I stop. And I'm thinking like, it's like at first I didn't know what it was. And then as I'm looking at it, I'm staring at this thing. And Batman. It is the biggest owl I've ever seen. And I couldn't tell you what type, right? Like it wasn't a barn owl. It wasn't a horned owl. It was just this big gray owl, right? For starters, it was gray and black. I know that for a fact because I stared at it. And like, and I'm looking, and it's underneath a light. Like it's literally like I see it clear as fucking day. Like I know it's an owl, right? And I'm thinking, and it's nighttime, yeah. And it's like 4 a.m. at this point.
Oh shit!
And I'm thinking to myself, like, has it like jumped down? Because you know when owls like they grab something, they like their wings are out.
Yeah.
And this thing is sitting there, hunched over with its wings out, right? Like completely, and it looks like. I'm trying to think. Like it looks like this, like you know, like when vultures do that, like they poof out their wings.
Yeah, when they hook up their wings.
Yeah, and they like bring them out, and they fucking kind of like move back and forth. And that's what it was doing. It was just sitting in front of me doing that.
Was it looking at you?
Yeah, straight at me.
What color were its eyes?
Black.
They were black?
Completely black.
If they were red, I'd say you saw a Mothman.
No, I know. That's, yeah. So
that's exactly where my brain was. I was like, you saw a fucking Mothman.
No, so that's what I couldn't get over was that its eyes were completely black.
Oh.
Like normally there's a ring. Like they're yellow.
Yeah.
You know, or like yellow or blue if they're the barn owls, right? They were, and it wasn't like he was in light. So if his eyes were dilated, they wouldn't be. You know what I mean? Like he was in light.
Yeah.
And it was just black and his head wasn't moving. His head was just locked onto me.
Like the body's moving.
The wings are kind of moving side to side. And he's kind of like,
bitch over.
Well, no. So, I mean, no, that's the thing is like,
don't play this dude yet.
Well, and that's what was so weird was like, I wasn't scared, but I wasn't moving.
But you were just like, what?
I was just standing there. I was waiting, like in my head, I was waiting for it to fly away, you know, but I'm just sitting there staring at this thing. Right. So eventually, right, like after like a couple seconds, right, of me staring at this thing, I'm like, Jesus fuck. Like, and I literally am like, what the fuck? And right as I say that, it woof, and it goes up, right? It fucking flies away, right? But well, it flies up into like the street lamp and I can't see it anymore. And so I'm like, oh shit. So I go to put my, I go to like, oh man. And I grab my steering wheel and I check that it's in drive. Like, I just like, for some reason I just went to check and my buddy is banging on my window. And I look over and I'm like, whoa, what's up? And I was like, did you see that fucking owl? He's like, yeah. Why the fuck were you staring at it for 10 minutes? And I was like, what? And he's like, you've been sat here for 10 minutes.
How long was he outside your car banging on the window?
I don't know. Like that's that because like, at that point I'm like, what are you fucking talking about?
Right.
And he's like, dude, he's like, dude, he's like, I was parked behind you for 10 minutes. And he's like, and he's like, and all I saw you slam on the fucking brakes and there were 2 giant fucking wings on either side of your car. So this thing was that big, right? Like, and that's the thing, right? It was big. Its wingspan was wider than my car, right? So like the size thing is not registering to me until he starts to explain it to me. Its head was above my hood. Oof. And its wings were wider than my car. My headlights were in its wing pits, right? So its body was literally the width of my headlights.
Right.
So this owl, right? And that's the thing is like, I was like standing there and I was like, what do you fucking mean? I sat there for 10 minutes. He's like, dude, you stopped? And he's like, and I saw these giant fucking wings from either side of it. And he's like, and I backed up. He's like, I backed up my car because I figured you were going to back up. He's like, and then I stopped and you were sat there for another like 8 minutes. And he's like, and I've just been sitting here waiting. And he's like, yeah. And he's like, when it flew, he's like, when I didn't see the wings anymore, I walked over here and banged on the window. And I was like, it was an owl. And he's like, bullshit. He's like, there's no way an owl is that big. He's like, its wings were on either side of your car. He's like, I could see it. Right. And I was like, I don't know. And like at that point, like that's when we started talking and like realized the size of this thing. And I told him, I was like, dude, its head didn't move. I was like, it was looking right at me. And he's like, I don't know, man, we need to fucking leave now. Oh, yeah. And we left. Right. And so, like, no idea what this thing was enormous. Like it was a big owl. Like, and that's the thing is like my brain, like nothing registered. Like I stopped and was like, holy shit, it's a big fucking owl. And I was like, wow, it's staring at me. I'm staring at it. Oh, fuck. Okay. It flew away. Let's go. And in like that amount of time, like that's how much time passed in my brain. Mm-hmm. But we were sat there for like 10, 15 minutes. Like, and this thing was bigger than my SUV.
So there's this whole theory.
Aliens?
No.
Okay. I've heard that one.
And then my ass hurt.
Yeah. Well, there's a whole thing of like owls or aliens. Like you look into its eyes and then it.
Really?
Like, yeah.
So there's this whole thing about animals. Usually it's deer that's not a deer. Like that's a deer, but that isn't acting like a deer.
Right.
And there's a phenomenon where essentially deers, like they get like a wasting disease. So they look like they're alive, but they look like zombies. But
they're like covered in warts and shit.
Yeah. Like it's a weird deer disease.
Literally just look up zombie deer and you'll see it.
Yep. But anyway, so this theory is that there is, fuck. Okay. So there's something called the uncanny valley. You guys both know what the uncanny valley is?
No.
Okay. So the closer a facsimile of humanity gets to looking like an actual human, there's like a curve where it goes up. Like dolls and like Cabbage Patch and all that, they're like kind of cutesy, and anime is kind of cutesy, big eye, small mouth, kind of cutesy. And then you dip into this valley called the uncanny valley, where it's beginning to resemble humanity too much, and we have like a fear reaction to it. Like a good example would be real dolls. Some people are freaked out by real dolls because they look too human. So that phenomenon is called the uncanny valley. It uncannily resembles a human to a point where it freaks us out.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. If I saw a sex doll in my room at 2 a.m. and I like looked over at it and I'm like, oh,
well, I mean, like real dolls is one thing, like mannequins.
Yeah,
I think mannequins is a more like more people are like around mannequins,
right? Especially if somebody spent a lot of time making a mannequin look human.
Yeah, my mom had one, and like it was in a room, and it scared the shit out of me every time I walked in there.
Yeah, what was the name of that one movie where the mannequin would come alive? It was supposed to be like a
mannequin.
Is that the name of the fucking movie?
Where like the woman falls in love with him.
Yeah. I was like, this is creepy as fuck.
So that phenomenon is called the uncanny valley. So there's a theory that the reason we are afraid of things that look human is that we have a predator that we don't know about anymore, or we had a predator in our past that was really, really good at mimicking us.
Bigfoot.
It can mimic the way we talked. It can mimic the sounds we make. It can mimic the way we look.
Candy?
I'm telling you, man, Bigfoot.
So there's an alternate theory to that these things, whatever they are, and Wendigo and Skinwalkers are usually we
like shapeshifters.
Yeah.
Okay.
They also mimic animals, and what they're trying to do, like in your situation, is they're trying to get you to get out of the car because it can't get into your car.
Yeah.
But if you get out of your car, you're dead.
Right.
Your buddy gets out of his car, he's dead. You guys are at that point food. So it tries to entice you by doing this weird stuff that triggers that curiosity part of your brain.
The only thing I'm curious about is how long it's going to take me to fucking run its ass over.
Yeah, I would have leaned out the car and fired. I would like.
Well, like I said, but that's
you're either a trophy on the wall or you're not there.
No, but like that's the thing is like, I mean, you know me, I'm that type of person too, but that it just I wasn't there.
It's 4 a.m.
Yeah, well, 4 a.m. I'm like, it's an owl, like
it could literally be triggering your like fight or flight response, and you might be on that spectrum in the whatever it is, the uncanny valley, or whatever it is, where it's dead stopping you. But that's your survival instinct is don't get out of the car, don't break eye contact, don't get out.
Yeah, because I mean, like that was my thing, was like I didn't move. And like normally, like I'm that person that's like, I'm like, what is that? I need to go out there and freaking punch it in the face, or you know what I mean? Like I told you about that, like what I thought was a person in the room, and I was like, I'm gonna punch it. Like, like I'm normally that type of person, but this was one of the few times in my life where I literally was just like, stunned. What do I do?
Alan,
like what? Like I'm waiting
in the back of your head.
Like I'm waiting for it. I was waiting for it to fly away.
Yeah.
You know, like it's an owl, like it should fly away. But the fact that like the time, like I didn't know, like 10 minutes doesn't sound like a long time, but when you're sitting there staring at an animal, that's a long time. Like normally when you think of like when you catch a wildlife, you're like, oh, deer, oh, it's gone. Like this was like I was just locked on this thing.
I think your entire story took less than 10 minutes to share.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, like that, that's a long time to be sat, you know, and like, and also the size of it, it didn't register in my brain. Like, hey, here's this owl that's bigger, that's above my hood. You know what I mean?
You were just like, that's a big ass bird.
Yeah. I was like, that's a big owl. Like this thing was literally the size of a fucking ostrich. Like
that would have fucking terrified me.
Yeah, exactly.
It's that Jurassic Park. That Jurassic Park taught you well.
Yeah, right.
It's sites based on movement.
Yeah. No, it was crazy. It was one of those things where it was just like crazy, I'm usually very perceptive, and the fact that like I didn't notice how long I was sitting there, I didn't notice how big it was, you know, like all of those things to where like I was scared, like I spooked when everybody knocked on the window. Yeah, you know, like that doesn't happen to me often, you know. Yeah, it was weird. I never, and it never blinked.
And that was the owl that never blinked.
Owl that never blinks. It never blinked. It didn't blink once the entire time. You know,
that's great. That's dope. Yeah, like again, like your story.
No explanation. Like to this day, like even you talking about like Skinwalker or whatever, I'm still like, I don't know. But like the whole thing, like no explanation.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Being somebody who has a lot of Native American based beliefs, I don't know whether or not I think that Wendigos and Skinwalkers exist. I mean, like it's an interesting thought experiment, but I don't know if I believe in that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But that's like I've heard of the Mothman. Like that was the first thing I thought.
Yeah, I was like, if it had red eyes, Mothman.
What's Mothman?
Mothman was a phenomenon that was seen.
You should watch the movie.
Yeah, you should watch the movie with Nicolas Cage. But essentially,
it's not Nicolas Cage. It's
is it not Dennis Quaid?
It's the guy from Pretty Woman.
Charlie Sheen?
No, Pretty Woman.
No, I think I got a face. I don't have.
Wow, my brain is not.
Yeah, I don't even know. I don't know. Some dude. He was in Pretty Woman.
So anyway, the Mothman is a phenomenon that was seen by many people. And then a bridge collapsed, and the idea is that the Mothman was like a harbinger, like a warning sign. We can do a Mothman episode.
We should. I think we should.
Mothman episode would be interesting.
I think we should do an episode. Excuse me. We should do an episode based on woodland urban legends. Mothman is one of those,
like Pine Barren stuff,
Jersey Devil, Bigfoot, like things like Blair Witch.
Oh yeah,
Blair Witch.
Oh my god, such a good fucking movie.
I fucking love Blair Witch.
Scared the fuck out of me when I was
younger. Scared the fucking shit out of me. When I was
it's one of the movies that I'll go back and watch every once in a while.
Have you seen the new one?
No.
Oh, it's good.
Is it?
It's good. Fuck. I like it. The last 10 minutes are kind of like but
the last 10
they show the witch and that's kind of like but like
the last 10 minutes. So my significant other watched it a couple of weeks ago, and I came in towards the tail end, like probably the last 30 minutes, and I was like, "This is kind of dumb."
Like, is that the one where they're in the basement?
Yeah, and they're like
in the basement.
No, they're
facing
in
the wall or whatever.
Shit.
Yeah,
the whole thing. The best part about it was it does one of those one of my favorite horror movie tricks, which is so genius. It just never becomes day.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like it turns night, stays night.
Yep.
It's been like 3 days. It's been night the whole time.
Still night.
To me, that is the most the most terrifying thing you can do, like for a movie, that you don't have to do anything.
My favorite little movie trick is when they set the focal length of the camera to be steady, but then they move the camera back, so like the hallway elongates.
Oh yeah.
I fucking love that.
Yeah.
All right, so we are going to continue with our exploration of all things existentially dreadful. Urban legends and myths have been a part of cities and cultures for as long as we've gathered in groups and tried to calm ourselves while huddled around a burning fire. Last time we covered Nurgle. This time we're going to cover Tzeentch, who, for those of you that don't know, Tzeentch is the god, the chaos god of change, of schemes.
Giant murder chicken.
A giant murder chicken. Katya was a low-level administratum adept. Her job had her focusing on cataloging and tracking logistical data for Innsmouth Hive's mid-level manufactorums. Some of the data that she had access to went back hundreds, if not thousands of years. Imperial trade records being bloated archives that not many understood the depth or width of. At some point in Innsmouth's past, a glitch in a cogitator matrix had opened up a vulnerability into the wider Innsmouth data network, giving those who knew about it or those who had the ability to stumble into it access to the entire Hive's backups. This included highly protected and often classified data, such as Arbites records, Hive nobility household networks, astropathic relay messages, and even inquisitorial archives. These things had never interested Katya, but everybody knew and everybody talked about them. During one of her many late-night data entry sessions, Kat stumbled upon a weird designation, KAT-14. At first, she brushed it off, but over time, this began to puzzle her, giving her that nagging at the edge of her mind, ever present, like the buzzing of static over a radio, or the need to finish a puzzle you lost when you were merely a child. Days or even months passed before, with horror, she realized the truth. She was KAT-14. With a rush of horror, she dipped into her local cameras, her mind focused into a brutal spike, which shattered the closest servo skull's firewall like a brick thrown through a glass window. She took control and slowly began to pan the servo skull around in a small circle before it finally came to rest on an emaciated body. The woman that lay in Kat's digital vision may have once been a recognizable 25 or 26-year-old. Before being entombed and intravenously fed, while her body atrophied and her physical form was ravaged. The form now hung, stripped bare, suspended inside its cylindrical cage of metal ribs. Hair long ago fallen out, the skin of her body no longer healthy enough to hold the follicles. Skin turning translucent, easily exposing the blue sluggish pumping of blood, which mixed with the neon sickly green of artificial life support. Wires and pipes snaked into her nose, burrowed into her veins, and violated her modesty. An iron plaque was bolted above shriveled breasts, bearing the sequence KAT-14. Her entire life had been a lie, a simulation to keep her higher functioning brain focused on processing the moving of massive amounts of Imperial data from one network to another. She didn't know where her memories ended and this parody of control took over. Had she tested too high in some aptitude test? Had she ever had the lush and ankle-length red hair she was known for? Had she ever kissed Johnny under the murder bowl bleachers? She screamed soundlessly, a psychic echo shaking the local system and crashing data, transfers, and power grids for blocks. As the power was sucked from every system, the servo skull smashed to the deck, its last recorded image of her body showing her physical mouth agape in a silent scream of rage and terror. As the power systems began to recover, Kat remembered an ancient document, something she'd ignored years ago. No, maybe it was only cycles. Wait, minutes? Hours? Time had begun to lose its meaning. She couldn't trust her memories of the days past. She had been doomed, her life stolen, her mind forced into place of a cogitator. How many nights had she flirted with staying after her shift ended and reading into these old documents? How many times had she resisted the urge to dip into forbidden knowledge? Now that she knew the truth, she could manipulate the cycles, shunt her inactive mind into the endless repetition and movement of data entry, while her active mind could steal microseconds, then seconds, later minutes, and even hours, poring over long-forgotten Ordos Hereticus files, devouring the knowledge she had always ignored. Darius hated this stretch of his shift. The long open areas in these galleries always creeped him out. Even with a las pistol and shock maul at his side, the long and shifting shadows which clung to the emaciated bodies of the servitors always made his skin crawl. It had been about a month ago when the power had died and the Servo Skull network had crashed. This entire district had to be patrolled in person now, while the network was being repaired. He swore he heard whispers on his first day, And a few days later, he would have sworn his entire week's pay that one of the female servitors had been humming. But no matter how much he reported to the captain, all he got was ignored and given more shifts through these body farms among these ghostly pale parodies of lost humanity strung up like so much grox meat hung to bleed dry. Tonight was the worst. The power was flickering, and static lightning had leapt from his shock maul to his electronic torch, shorting it out, plunging him into this weird twilight of blue, red, and green flickering indicator lights. Worse yet, his auspex had been acting up, pinging back movement. Either it was on the fritz, or someone was down here fucking around again. Probably damn ganger kids betting each other to touch servitor bodies, or trying to get up the nerve to tag several of them with their gang signs. Something flashed by the row of bodies a few feet from him. In the brief flickering of light, it looked like a leathery disc with batlings, almost swimming through the air. Man, he really needed to stay away from the calf. Too many stims were playing tricks on his eyes. Must have been a warmonger, clad in that leather armor. This could get messy. He thumbed a request for backup before drawing his last pistol as he approached the corner. Another flash of movement drawing his attention to a few rows behind him. This time, a flurry of naked flesh, and he swore 4 pink limbs behind a leering face that came out from behind the naked torso of an old man, that then vanished down the row. He paused, unsure of where to go, his auspex showing movement all around him. Suddenly, a gout of multicolored flame lit up the gallery, startling Darius, who stumbled backwards into the body of a woman hung in a tangle of pipes and cables. His gun trapped and twisted from his grip, and just as suddenly as it had come, the fire started to fade. The sound of the auspex, the fire, the lights even flickered and steadied, his torch even snapping back into life. Too late, he noticed that the body he pressed against felt supple, the breasts full, the skin warm and light. His mind at once rebelling against the idea and screaming that the bodies here should feel like frail paper bags of bone, not the warm, soft, and comforting embrace of a lover. He felt a warm and wet pressure at his neck, like a gentle kiss. A warmth and contentment began to wash over his senses. Behind him, crouched in her hanging harness like a spider, her arms draped around his body, Katia smiled, her blind eyes burning with a swirl of purple and blue fire as her tongue burrowed deep into Darius's jugular, drinking in his essence. Her body, despite what his senses were telling him, was still an emaciated husk, her belly beginning to dissent as she consumed his life-giving blood. As she drank from him, the wires and pipes fell from her body, her skin knitted back together and began to flush with color and warmth, the same color and warmth that he had felt in his last moments of life. Finally emptied, she dropped the husk of Darius's body, now not much more than a leather sack holding hollowed bones. She still hovered a foot over the deck, her nude body now that of a revered and lusted after goddess. The gifts of change she now embraced, coursing through the blood she had stolen and the secret magics of endless life and power, now hers to command in her master's name. She came to stand at the deck of the gallery, red hair slowly growing from her head, hanging down to her ankles, even as a mound of red hair grew to keep her modesty. A feathered shawl materialized about her shoulders, clasped over a dress whose neck plunged to below her navel. A silver triple-headed vulture. Her eyes slowly returned to a green and blue swirling hue, no longer aflame and blinding. She reached a hand with blood-red nails down, resting them on top of the head of a blue monstrosity. Not much more than a mess of arms and legs, nude in its inhumanity. Fire belched from its wide grin as it held up a las pistol and an auspex, and a parody of the Arbites that laid dead and crumpled at its feet. The auspex green screen began pinging out a jaunty tune as movement swallowed the entire deck. So that was a taste of a sorceress who may or may not be wandering the underhive of Innsmouth.
It looks like Kevin running around naked.
And Kevin running around, yeah. And the blue horror named Kevin running around naked.
Massive limbs.
Massive limbs and red hair.
Goddamn, that's a lot of ankles, boy.
Kevin's
Why you got
around.
like 10 ankles on them legs?
Kevin's running around naked again.
So To follow or to finish out our episodes, we've had a couple of requests from our amazing patrons to bring back our hobby progress segment that we used to do at the end of our earlier episodes.
Oh, really?
So I guess we'll start checking in again on what we're getting done. Marky, what has been your current project?
My current project, I was working on a Shinork.
A Shinork, okay.
Shinork. That is, I'm gonna.
What
use
the
it.
Shinuck is that, or the Shafuck? What is the Shafuck? Is that?
It is a dual rotor.
It's a stupid way of saying Chinook, which is a dual rotor helicopter.
That's why I said Shafuck. Okay.
Stupid way of saying it.
It's a
Orky bullshit. Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly.
helicopter that I'm gonna run as like a Docker jet or a Wasbam.
That's awesome, man.
I got like 20 orc commandos that I gotta paint.
Up.
I put them all together. Got to paint them up.
That kill team box getting you good.
I finished all my Kriegsmen, which I'm going to put together, or I'm going to paint as Steel Legion.
Oh, very cool.
And I finished all of my orc terrain, have it all primed, working on details right now. So,
Yeah, it looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Looks pretty good. We should we'll share up some pictures this week.
Yeah, I think I threw some up on the Instagram, but I can post some more later ones once it's a little more finished.
Beast, how about you? What you been working on recently?
Cars.
Yeah, the van.
Yeah.
Cars. Yeah, basically my truck died, so I've just been working on cars. I bought a van and then it broke down. So been doing that.
The big hobby project, making sure a vehicle runs.
My motorcycle also, I got that back up and running.
Oh, awesome, man.
In the span of a week, I have like almost overhauled a van and a motorcycle. So,
damn, dude.
Yeah. But model wise, tonight I just built I built the HMS Hood, which is a battleship. It's in 1/400 scale to go with my squadron leader game.
Very cool.
So we can give us some anti-shipping.
Yeah, I've had a Gundam sitting in my closet for like 8 years.
Yeah. I've had this model since I was in high school, so it's nice to finally build it.
That's crazy, man.
One of these hobby streams, I'll put it together.
Right. And I'm trying to get Chaos Knights going. It's a slow process.
Yeah.
I just haven't been in the mood for it.
Yeah, dude, you gotta enjoy it. I mean, you don't want to force yourself to hobby something that you
exactly. Well, and like I take a lot of pride in that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I just haven't had the drive for it. So I'm like, I'm not. Although tonight was cool. I mean, I brought the battleship because I was like, this is an easy model for me to build. And I mean, I like building.
Yeah.
But then I also brought the knight. Because I was like, I'll make some green stuff. That sounds fun.
Yeah, there you go, man.
So I ended up making some horns for that. But that's it. That's all I've been up to.
Yeah, it hits me in waves, honestly. Like the whole hobby bug thing. Like sometimes I'm like, dude, I can't paint today. I can't put shit together today. But I mean, in that last week, I put together 20 commandos.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
If I knocked that terrain out in like a day.
If I didn't have to be working on cars, I would have been working on my airplane. You know what I mean? I would have been doing a bunch of hobby stuff, but
stuff you'd rather be working.
Yeah. Trust me, man. I've been covered in grease for like fucking 8 days.
That's cool though. Those are skills that I don't have. I couldn't rebuild an engine or get a motorcycle running again for the life of me. So that's awesome, man.
My oil pressure gauge keeps going down every time I stop. And I was like, oh, let me take a picture of that. And I was like, if I could send it to my dad, like, hey, what the fuck's wrong with your shit? He's like, it's an oil pressure sensor. It's easy to replace. I'm like, cool. Then it should be cheap, right?
Have you checked the oil?
No.
You should check the oil because that means you don't have any.
Well, it goes back up to normal. Oh, so even then,
okay. If it's when you stop, that's when it all settles.
Right.
Yeah,
so if it settles and it goes down, that means all of your oil's not there.
Right, but it's not leaking and it doesn't burn oil. So I mean,
it doesn't. Well, it doesn't.
You're probably not out. You're probably lower than you should be, and at some point, you'll start causing damage to your pistons.
Yeah.
Well, because think about it this way, right? The dirtier the oil is, the thicker it becomes. So then, therefore, the less volume, the less there is because it's all clumped together.
Yeah.
So check your oil.
Yeah, check your oil, man.
Tell Chris not to drive it. Don't fucking drive it.
I just driving up here, dude. I had to pull over to make sure I wasn't leaking coolant.
Yeah. So for my hobby progress, I have been working on the Exodites. I got all of my Wraith axes painted. I got all of my Wraith Guard painted, and I started working on my Shadow Specters, and I started working on some of the dinosaurs.
Nice.
Dinosaurs.
I post up pictures pretty regularly on Discord. Not Discord.
Twitter.
Pretty regularly on Twitter and pretty regularly on Instagram. So yeah, check us out. So yeah, that brings us to a close for this session of Lorus Obscurus. Although we have many more of our own spooky doogie stories, we want to hear yours. Please send us your ghost stories, strange sightings, cryptids, creepypastas, or urban legends from around the hive. The best way to get those to us is to email us at underthehiveofmadness@gmail.com or jimdarkgaming@gmail.com. But we also have an amazing and growing community on Discord.
Yeah, the absolute best way to get a hold of us. We're pretty much always on. I haven't been lately, but we are pretty much always on there, and it's very, very active. It's popping, some would say.
Yeah. We have a project there called the Hive Project where you can actually help us and influence the way that Innsmouth Hive's own lore grows. We've named a second hive, and there's been some questions to actually name the world. So that might be happening soon. If you like the podcast and want to help us stand out in the algorithm, please follow us on Spotify, like and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever else you find your podcasts. Reviews, likes, shares, and all of that stuff help us a lot when trying to stand apart from the other podcasts in the algorithm. As we grow our audience, more and more options will open up for us. So that's definitely a focus that we want to continue to see. You can help us a little bit more directly over on Patreon, which you can find at patreon.com/underthehiveofmadness. We have polls and a lot of other things. You can join our growing rank of four-armed rats at the $3, $6, or $9 levels. We've got some information there to explain how all of those work, and we are planning on releasing some more stuff here in the near future. Join us Friday nights at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for all sorts of Warhammer 40k content and goodness. Find out more about us and connect with our various social media projects through our website, underthehiveofmadness.com, or check out our link tree, which is linktree/underthehive. Camerats, it isn't looking good for us tonight. Our barricade is now a superheated slag pool, and the madness-driven shouting of the Glass-Eater cultists has reached a fever pitch. Thankfully, Beast just happens to have brought all of our firearms, meaning we get to practice our favorite activity, shooting our way out. With any luck and a lot of expended shells, 665.66 UHM Chemrat Radio will be back, a little more singed, a little more bruised, but a hell of a lot more wicked. When in the company of an Arbites and a four-armed Emperor, remember, you don't have to outrun the four-armed Emperor, you just have to trip an Arbites.
They really do eat glass.
They're totally eating glass. That one's eating a light bulb.
I'm going to eat that one.